The boardroom door slammed shut with the finality of a guillotine. Adrienne Vale, CEO of Valetech Industries, stood at the head of the mahogany table like a judge delivering sentence, her glacial blue eyes fixed on the man in the maintenance uniform who had just interrupted the quarterly review. "You don't walk into my meetings," she said, her voice sharp enough to draw blood. "You don't make eye contact with executives, and you certainly don't speak unless I ask you a direct question." Ethan Cole met her gaze without flinching. "My daughter's school just called. She collapsed." The room held its breath. Everyone expected security to drag him out. What they got instead would change everything. Before we continue, I want to invite you to journey with me through this complete story. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below. I love seeing how far these stories travel. And if this opening grabbed you, hit that like button. Now, let's dive into part 1. The fluorescent lights of Valetech Industries hummed with the same cold efficiency that defined everything about Adrienne Vale's empire. From the sterile white walls to the precisely calibrated temperature of 68 degrees, every detail reflected her philosophy. Emotion was weakness, sentiment was inefficiency, and power was the only currency that mattered. Ethan Cole had learned this truth during his first week as a maintenance worker. He'd taken the night shift because it paid 17% more than days. And 17% meant the difference between Lily's experimental medication and the standard treatment that hadn't worked. The doctors had given his 6-year-old daughter a 32% chance of remission. Ethan had promised her those odds would become 100%, even if he had to will it into existence himself. Tonight, that will was about to be tested. "Mr. Cole?" The voice crackled through his radio at 11:47 p.m., just as he finished sanitizing the executive washroom on the 14th floor. "Ms. Vale needs the 19th floor conference room prepared immediately. Board meeting moved up to midnight." Ethan pressed the button. "Copy that. I'll have it ready in 15 minutes. He gathered his supplies with practiced efficiency, mind already cataloging what needed to be done. Vacuum the carpets, polish the table, ensure the presentation screens were dust-free. Stock the water pitchers with the imported mineral water Ms. Vale insisted upon, chilled to exactly 42 degrees. The elevator ride to 19 felt longer than usual. Through the glass walls, the city sprawled below like a circuit board, all lights and geometry. Somewhere out there, Lily was sleeping in her hospital bed, hooked to machines that beeped her heartbeat into the darkness. The nurse had promised to call if anything changed. "Don't care what the shareholders think." "Don't care what the shareholders think." Adrienne Vale's voice cut through the space like a scalpel. "We're not selling the medical division. It's non-negotiable." Ethan moved quickly toward the service exit, but the cart's wheel caught on the carpet seam. The bucket tipped. Water splashed across the marble in a spreading pool. The voices stopped. "What is that?" Adrienne appeared in the doorway, flanked by 3 board members in expensive suits. Her charcoal dress was immaculate, her dark hair pulled into a bun so tight it looked painful. At 38, she had the kind of beauty that intimidated rather than invited. All sharp angles and sharper assessments. "My apologies, Ms. Vale." Ethan grabbed the mop. "I'll have this cleaned up in 60 seconds. "You'll have it cleaned up in 30, or you'll clean out your locker." She stepped around the puddle with the kind of precision that suggested she'd never made a mess in her life. "And next time, finish your work before midnight meetings are scheduled." "I was told 15 minutes ago." "I don't care when you were told." She stopped, turned. Her eyes were the color of Arctic ice. "Do you know what I care about, Mr. Cole?" He kept mopping. "Results. Results delivered without excuses. Can you manage that?" "Yes, ma'am." "Then prove it by being invisible." She swept into the conference room. The board members followed except for one, a silver-haired man who paused beside Ethan. "She's had a difficult week," he said quietly. "The medical division is personal to her." Ethan wrung out the mop. "Everything seems personal to her." The man smiled sadly. "You have no idea." Then he too disappeared into the meeting. The service exit was 10 feet away when Ethan's phone buzzed. St. Catherine's Hospital. Emergency. His hand froze on the cart handle. The conference room door was glass. Through it, he could see Adrienne Vale standing at the head of the table, laser pointer in hand, commanding her empire. The phone buzzed again. "Lily asking for you. Come now." Ethan abandoned the cart. He ran. The elevator took forever. His reflection in the mirrored walls showed a man of 32 who looked 40. Stress had carved premature lines around his brown eyes, and his maintenance uniform hung loose on a frame that had shed 15 pounds in the past year. Sarah had always said he looked like a professor pretending to be a janitor. Sarah, who died 3 years ago in a car accident that left Lily in the back seat with minor injuries and Ethan behind the wheel with major guilt. The lobby security guard looked up from his phone. "Leaving early, Cole?" "Family emergency." "You gotta sign out." But Ethan was already through the doors into the November cold, running toward the parking garage where his 15-year-old Honda waited with a temperamental starter and 182,000 miles of determination. The engine caught on the third try. He was shifting into reverse when his phone rang. "Mr. Cole? This is Dr. Patel. Lily's fever spiked to 104. We're running tests, but I need you here to authorize. I'm 5 minutes away. Drive safely." He drove like a man racing against the universe itself. St. Catherine's emergency entrance was a blur of automatic doors and antiseptic smell. The nurse at the desk recognized him immediately. He'd spent enough nights here to know everyone's name. "Room 407, she said. "Dr. Patel's waiting." The elevator to the fourth floor was full of people trying not to look at each other's grief. A woman in a bathrobe clutched a rosary. A man in a business suit had dried tears on his cheeks. A teenage boy stared at his phone like it held answers. Ethan counted his breaths. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. Sarah had taught him that during her panic attacks. Now he used it to keep from falling apart. Room 407 was at the end of the corridor, where the lights seemed dimmer and the sounds more urgent. Through the small window, Ethan could see Lily's small form under white blankets, surrounded by machines that beeped and hummed like a mechanical choir. Dr. Patel met him at the door. She was in her 50s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and the kind of calm that came from delivering bad news for decades. Her white blood cell count dropped, she said without preamble. The latest chemo round hit her harder than expected. We're giving her antibiotics, but Ethan... She touched his arm. "We need to talk about next steps." "She's going to be fine." He said it like a fact, like saying it could make it true. "Come inside." Lily was awake. Her golden curls, so much like Sarah's, were mostly gone, reduced to patches by the chemotherapy. But her eyes were bright when she saw him. "Daddy!" Her voice was small but fierce. "You came." "Of course I came." He sat on the edge of her bed, careful not to jostle the IV lines. "How are you feeling, Butterfly?" "Tired. The medicine makes me sleepy." She reached for his hand with fingers that felt too fragile. "Did you bring the book?" He pulled a worn copy of The Secret Garden from his jacket pocket. Chapter 14. Mary discovers the key. "Read to me?" So he read, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest, while Dr. Patel adjusted monitors and nurses came and went with practiced quiet. He read until Lily's breathing deepened into sleep, until the machines settled into their rhythmic beeping, until the night pressed against the windows with patient darkness. Dr. Patel motioned him into the corridor. "The experimental treatment," she said. "It's our best shot now, but insurance won't cover it. We're looking at $180,000 for the full protocol." Ethan felt the number land in his stomach like a stone. "How long do I have?" "To decide?" "A week. To raise the funds?" She looked at him with practiced sympathy. "That depends on your resources." His resources consisted of $8,347 in savings, a mortgaged house that was underwater, and a maintenance job that paid $42,000 a year before taxes. "I'll figure it out," he said. "Ethan, I'll figure it out." He stayed until 4 a.m., dozing in the chair beside Lily's bed, waking every time a machine beeped or a nurse entered. When the night shift nurse assured him Lily was stable, he finally left, driving through empty streets toward a house that felt too big without Sarah's laughter filling it. The mortgage payment was due in 6 days. The car needed new brakes, and now he needed $180,000. He stood in his kitchen as dawn broke through the windows, drinking instant coffee and staring at the refrigerator covered in Lily's drawings. She'd drawn a garden full of flowers with a girl standing in the center, arms spread wide, face turned toward the sun. "When I'm better," she'd told him, "I want to plant a real garden, with roses and butterflies and magic." "No magic in real gardens, Butterfly." Then we'll make our own magic. His phone buzzed. A text from Vailtech HR. Unauthorized absence during scheduled shift. Report to supervisor at 8 a.m. Ethan checked the time. He had 90 minutes to shower, change, and prepare to probably lose his job. Instead, he made Lily's favorite breakfast, chocolate chip pancakes shaped like butterflies, and packed them in a container to bring to the hospital later. Then he showered, put on his maintenance uniform, and drove back to Vailtech Industries with the same determination that had gotten him through Sarah's death, through Lily's diagnosis, through every impossible moment that demanded he keep standing when lying down would have been easier. The supervisor's office was on the 3rd floor, next to the employee break room that always smelled like burnt coffee and disappointment. Marcus Webb was 60, balding, and perpetually exhausted by the demands of managing a maintenance staff for a CEO who noticed every speck of dust. He looked up when Ethan entered, his expression somewhere between sympathy and exasperation. "Cole, sit." Ethan sat. "You walked off your shift last night, left a cart in the executive hallway, caused Ms. Vale to step over cleaning supplies during a board meeting." Webb consulted his computer screen. "She wants you terminated." "My daughter had a medical emergency." "You didn't follow protocol. You're supposed to notify me first, get approval." "There wasn't time." Webb rubbed his temples. "I've got 3 kids myself, I get it, but Ms. Vale doesn't care about personal circumstances. She cares about performance and protocol." "Then fire me." Ethan met his eyes. "But know that I'd make the same choice every time. My daughter comes first." "I'm not firing you," Webb sighed. "I'm giving you a written warning and docking you 2 days' pay. And I'm moving you to day shift, effective immediately. Day shift pays less. Day shift means you're out of Ms. Vale's line of sight. Trust me, that's worth the pay cut." Ethan calculated quickly. Day shift paid $38,000 annually, $4,000 less than nights. That was 4 months of mortgage payments. That was medication he couldn't afford to skip. "I need the night differential," he said, "and I need to keep you employed. This is the compromise, Cole. Take it or leave it." He thought of Lily drawing gardens, of Sarah saying, "You're the strongest person I know," of Dr. Patel's kind eyes delivering impossible numbers. "I'll take it," he said, "on one condition." Webb's eyebrows rose. "You're not in a position to negotiate." "Let me work doubles. Day shift regular hours, then overtime cleaning after everyone leaves. I need the extra income." "That's 18-hour days. I can handle it." Webb studied him for a long moment, then he nodded slowly. "You've got guts, I'll give you that. Fine. But you screw up once. Once, and you're done. Ms. Vale doesn't give 3rd chances." "She didn't give me a 2nd chance." "No," Webb agreed. "I did." Ethan worked his first day shift that afternoon cleaning conference rooms while executives talked merger strategies and profit margins. He worked through lunch, through dinner, through the evening exodus when the office emptied and silence settled over the fluorescent-lit corridors. At 9 p.m., he was vacuuming the 19th floor when the elevator chimed. Adrienne Vale emerged carrying a leather briefcase and the weight of her empire. She stopped when she saw him. "You're still here." "Overtime, ma'am." "I thought I had you fired." "My supervisor showed mercy." She walked closer, heels clicking on the polished floor. "Think you deserve?" "No, ma'am." I think you deserve?" "No, ma'am. I think I deserve to support my daughter. The mercy was just a fortunate side effect." Something flickered in her expression, surprise maybe, or recognition. "The emergency last night. Your daughter?" "She has leukemia." Adrienne's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "How old?" "6. For 3 seconds, neither spoke. The vacuum hummed between them. "My medical division," Adrienne said finally, "is developing a new leukemia treatment, targeted gene therapy, 93% effective in trials. I read about it in the Wall Street Journal, $180,000 per patient. You can't afford it." It wasn't a question. Ethan turned off the vacuum. "Not yet," he said. "But I will." "How? By working yourself to death cleaning my floors?" "If that's what it takes." She studied him like he was a puzzle she couldn't solve, an equation that didn't balance according to her calculations. "You should hate me," she said quietly. "I almost cost you your job. I don't make exceptions for personal crises. I built this company on the principle that results matter more than circumstances. You didn't build it alone, Ethan said. Every floor I clean, every conference room I prepare, I'm part of your results. So are the security guards and the cafeteria workers and everyone else you don't see. We're all invisible until we're not. Adrienne's eyes flashed. I see everyone. Do you? Or do you just see functions, maintenance, security, administrative support? When's the last time you knew someone's name who didn't have a title? I know your name, Mr. Cole, because I inconvenienced you. The silence stretched taut as a wire. Then Adrienne did something unexpected. She laughed, a short, sharp sound without humor. You're either very brave or very stupid, she said. I haven't decided which. Neither, Ethan replied. I'm just tired of being invisible to people who think their corner office means they've transcended basic human decency. He expected her to explode, to fire him on the spot, to call security. Instead, she set down her briefcase. Tell me about your daughter, she said. The request caught him off guard. Why? Because I'm asking. And because she paused, and for the first time he saw something other than ice in her expression. Because I lost a child too. A long time ago. The confession hung in the air between them, vulnerable and unexpected. Ethan found himself talking about Lily's diagnosis 2 years ago, about Sarah's death 3 years before that, about how Lily loved butterflies and secret gardens, and believed magic was real if you looked hard enough, about the experimental treatment and the impossible number and the promise he'd made to a 6-year-old with disappearing curls. Adrienne listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable. When he finished, she picked up her briefcase. My assistant will contact you tomorrow, she said. We're starting a pilot program for employee medical assistants. Your daughter qualifies. Ethan's heart stopped. I don't understand. You will. She pressed the elevator button. And Mr. Cole, don't mistake this for sentiment. Consider it an investment in employee retention. You clean better than anyone else on staff. The elevator arrived. She stepped inside. Ms. Vale, go home to your daughter, she said as the doors began to close. That's an order. He stood alone in the empty corridor, vacuum forgotten, mind racing. The next morning, Valetech's HR director called him into her office. Mr. Cole, I'm pleased to inform you that you've been selected for our new Employee-Dependent Medical Assistance Program. Valetech will cover 100% of approved experimental treatments for qualifying dependents. Ethan's hands shook. Lily's treatment is approved. Dr. Patel has already received authorization to begin the protocol next week. How do I? The HR director smiled. Ms. Vale was very specific in her instructions. She said, and I quote, make it happen. No bureaucracy, no delays, just results. That afternoon, Ethan stood in Dr. Patel's office while she explained the treatment timeline. 8 weeks of intensive therapy, weekly monitoring, 93% success rate in clinical trials. This is a miracle, Dr. Patel said, squeezing his hand. However you made this happen, I didn't, Ethan said quietly. Someone else did. He tried to thank Adrienne Vale, sent an email to her executive assistant requesting 5 minutes of her time. The response came back within an hour. Ms. Vale appreciates your gratitude, but does not require thanks for business decisions. Please direct your energy toward your daughter's recovery. So he did. He rearranged his schedule to be present for every treatment session, working early mornings and late nights to make up the hours. He read to Lily from the secret garden while medicine dripped into her veins. He held her hand when the nausea came, when the exhaustion made her cry, when she whispered that she just wanted to feel normal again. You're the bravest person I know, he told her, braver than any superhero. Even Captain Marvel? Even Captain Marvel. What about you, Daddy? Are you brave? He thought about Adrienne Vale's unexpected mercy, about standing up when everyone expected him to bow, about choosing dignity over survival. I'm trying to be, he said. You make it easier. 3 weeks into treatment, Lily's blood counts began to improve. 4 weeks in, her energy returned. By week 6, Dr. Patel was cautiously optimistic. If this trajectory continues, she said, we're looking at full remission. Ethan allowed himself to hope. At work, his relationship with Adrienne Vale settled into something neither could quite define. She didn't acknowledge him directly, but her assistant began leaving notes with his maintenance assignments. Conference room 19B needs extra attention. Ms. Vale's investors meeting at 2 p.m. Executive washroom requires restocking. Ms. Vale notes the soap dispensers were empty yesterday. Small things, but they felt like communication. One evening, working late on the executive floor, Ethan noticed light under Adrienne's office door. It was past 10 p.m., even she usually left by 9. He knocked. Come in. She sat behind a desk covered in architectural plans and financial projections, her jacket discarded, hair falling loose from its usual severe bun. She looked younger like this. More human. Mr. Cole, did maintenance notify you of an issue? No, ma'am. I just saw your light and wanted to make sure everything was secure before I locked up this floor. Everything is secure. She returned to her documents. Thank you. He should have left. Instead, he heard himself say, when you lost your child, did it get easier? Her pen stilled. I'm sorry, Ethan said quickly. That was inappropriate. No. She set down the pen. It's a fair question. She was quiet for a long moment. I was 28, married to a man who loved my potential more than my person. 6 months pregnant when I miscarried during a board meeting I refused to miss. Ethan's chest tightened. They rushed me to the hospital, Adrienne continued, her voice flat with old grief. I was back at work in 3 days. My husband left 6 months later. Said I chose my company over our family. She looked up, met Ethan's eyes. He was right. You were grieving. I was hiding. She gestured at the office, the plans, the empire beyond the windows. All of this, it's armor. If I work hard enough, achieve enough, control enough, I don't have to feel the parts that hurt. Does it work? A ghost of a smile. What do you think? They sat in shared understanding. Two people who'd lost too much, armored differently, surviving the same war. Your daughter, Adrienne said. Lily, how is she? Responding well to treatment. Dr. Patel says if this continues, we're looking at remission. That's good. Something softened in her expression. I'm glad. Because of your employee retention investment? Now she really smiled. Because no child should have to fight that hard just to grow up. Ethan found himself smiling back. Thank you. Not for the business decision. For the humanity behind it. I'm not human, Mr. Cole. Haven't you heard? I'm a ruthless CEO without a soul. Then you fake it very convincingly. She laughed. A real laugh this time, surprised and genuine. Get out of my office before I remember why I have that reputation. Yes, ma'am. At the door he paused. Miss Vale? That armor you mentioned? It's not as impenetrable as you think. He left before she could respond. The next day, a memo circulated through Vale Tech. Effective immediately, all employees with dependent children will receive enhanced medical coverage, including experimental treatments. Flexible scheduling will be available for medical emergencies. Contact HR for details. The cafeteria buzzed with speculation. The medical division celebrated. The board members grumbled about costs. And in the maintenance supply room, Ethan Cole stood reading the memo with something that felt dangerously close to hope. His phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Patel. Week 7 results are exceptional. Lily's white blood cell count is normal range. I think we've done it, Ethan. I think she's going to make it. He sat down on a cleaning supply bucket and cried. Great heaving sobs of relief and gratitude and exhaustion that he'd been holding back for 2 years. When he finally composed himself, he saw another text. This one from an unknown number. Your daughter's blood work is excellent. Well done, Mr. Cole. A V. He stared at the message. Adrienne Vale had somehow gotten his personal number and taken time from running a billion-dollar company to acknowledge a janitor's daughter's medical progress. The armor, he thought, was definitely cracking. That weekend, he brought Lily home from the hospital for the first time in 3 weeks. Plant the garden now, she asked. Plant the garden now, she asked, curled up on the couch with her favorite blanket. It's November, Butterfly. Too cold for planting. Then we'll plan it. Draw pictures of where everything will go. So they spent the afternoon sketching gardens on butcher paper spread across the living room floor. Lily drew roses and tulips and butterflies with purple wings. Ethan drew pathways and benches and a fountain shaped like a bird bath. "There," Lily said, adding final touches to a sunflower taller than the house. "That's where the magic will be." "What kind of magic?" "The kind that makes sick people better. The kind that brings families together." She looked up at him with eyes too wise for 6 years. "The kind that made Ms. Vale help us." Ethan froze. "How do you know about Ms. Vale?" "I heard Dr. Patel talking to you. She said Vale Tech was paying for my medicine." Lily returned to her drawing. "Ms. Vale must be nice." "I don't know if nice is the right word." "What word would you use?" He thought of Arctic eyes softening in a late-night office, of armor cracking just enough to let humanity through, of a woman who'd lost everything and built an empire from the grief. "Complex," he said finally. "She's complex." "Will I meet her someday?" "Maybe. I want to thank her for the magic." Ethan pulled his daughter close, breathing in the hospital soap smell of her hair, feeling her heartbeat strong and steady against his chest. "Me too, Butterfly was," he whispered. "Me too." Monday morning, he returned to work with new purpose. The floors he cleaned weren't just surfaces, they were part of an ecosystem that had saved his daughter's life. The conference rooms he prepared weren't just spaces, they were where decisions happened that changed people's futures. He worked with quiet pride, invisible no longer. And on the 19th floor, in an office with views of the city she'd conquered, Adrienne Vale sat reading a report from her medical division. The new employee assistance program had been used by 17 families in its first month. Productivity was up 3%. Retention was up 8%. But that wasn't what held her attention. She was looking at a photo her assistant had included, probably without permission. It showed a small girl with patchy blonde curls sitting up in a hospital bed, grinning at the camera while holding a drawing of a garden. On the back, someone had written, "Lily Cole, age 6, week 8, post-treatment. Full remission achieved." Adrienne stared at the photo for a long time. Then she did something she hadn't done in 10 years. She cried. And the armor she'd built to survive cracked just a little bit wider. The photograph stayed on Adrienne's desk for 3 days before she finally tucked it into her drawer, beneath quarterly reports and acquisition proposals. Out of sight, but impossible to forget. That grin, those patchy curls, that evidence of something she'd stopped believing in. Second chances. She told herself it was satisfaction in a successful program rollout. Return on investment measured in employee loyalty and positive press coverage. The Wall Street Journal had already called requesting an interview about Vailtech's innovative benefits package. Her stock price had climbed 2 points, but late at night, when the office emptied and silence pressed against the windows, she'd open that drawer and look at Lily Cole's smile and remember what hope felt like. It terrified her. The intercom on her desk buzzed. "Ms. Vale, the design team is ready for the product review." Adrienne closed the drawer. "Send them in." 6 engineers filed into her office carrying prototypes and tablets loaded with specifications. They were developing a new glucose monitoring system for diabetic children, non-invasive, accurate, and affordable. The kind of innovation that could change lives. The kind of project she'd greenlit after reading about a maintenance worker's daughter fighting leukemia. "Walk me through the updates," she said, settling into the familiar rhythm of technical analysis. Here, in the world of data and design, emotions had no power. Here, she was in control. The presentation lasted 40 minutes. When the engineers left, Adrienne had approved a $15 million development budget and set an aggressive 12-month timeline for FDA approval. Her assistant appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Brennan from the board is calling. He wants to discuss the medical assistance program costs. Tell him I'm in meetings all afternoon. He's called 3 times today. Then he can call a 4th. Adrienne returned to her computer. "Anything else?" Her assistant hesitated. "The maintenance supervisor requested a meeting with you. Something about Mr. Cole's performance review." Adrienne's fingers stilled on the keyboard. "What about it?" "I don't have details, just that Mr. Webb wanted to discuss it personally." "Schedule it for tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. "That's quite early." "Mr. Webb arrives at 6:30, 7 a.m. Her assistant nodded and disappeared. Adrienne stared at her screen without seeing it, mind already calculating possibilities. Performance review could mean anything. Promotion, termination, restructuring. The thought of Ethan Cole being let go sent an unexpected jolt of alarm through her chest. She crushed it immediately. He was an employee. A capable one, certainly, but still just a function in the larger machine. If he left, someone else would clean the floors. The company would continue. Her phone buzzed with a text from her ex-husband. Saw the WSJ piece about your new benefits program. Finally, found your conscience? She deleted it without responding. That evening, she stayed late reviewing contracts, eating takeout sushi at her desk, while the city transformed into a constellation of lights below. At 9 p.m., she heard the familiar hum of a vacuum cleaner in the corridor. Ethan was working his usual overtime shift. Adrienne found herself standing, smoothing her skirt, checking her reflection in the dark window. Then she caught herself and sat back down forcefully. She was not the kind of woman who primped before talking to maintenance staff. The vacuum stopped outside her office. She waited, pen poised over a contract she wasn't reading. A soft knock. "Ms. Vale? Just checking if you need anything before I lock down this floor." "Come in, Mr. Cole." He entered, still in his maintenance uniform, looking tired but somehow lighter than before. The weight that had pressed down on his shoulders seemed diminished. "How's your daughter?" The question emerged before Adrienne could stop it. Ethan's face transformed. "She's amazing. Dr. Patel says her numbers are better than they've been in 2 years. She's even talking about going back to school after the holidays." "That's excellent news." "It's a miracle." He met her eyes directly. "Because of you. Because of medical science and good doctors. And because you made it possible." He took a step closer. "I know you don't want gratitude, but I need to say it anyway. You saved my daughter's life. Whatever your reasons, whatever business justification you gave yourself, you saved her." Adrienne felt something crack open in her chest, some carefully sealed chamber flooding with unwanted warmth. "I told you. It was an employee retention strategy." "You're a terrible liar, Ms. Vale." The observation hung between them, intimate and dangerous. "Mr. Cole." "I know," he said quietly. "We're not friends. You're the CEO. I'm maintenance. There are boundaries. But I also know that boundaries don't erase humanity. And whether you want to admit it or not, what you did was profoundly human." Adrienne stood abruptly. "Your supervisor wants to meet with me tomorrow morning about your performance review." The subject change was obvious, but Ethan didn't call her on it. "I wasn't aware I was being reviewed. All employees are reviewed periodically. Should I be concerned?" She looked at him, really looked, at the exhaustion etched around his eyes, at the cheap watch on his wrist that probably predated his daughter's diagnosis, at the dignity he wore like armor, so different from her own but just as impenetrable. "No," she said. "You shouldn't be concerned." He nodded slowly. "Then I'll let you get back to work." At the door he paused. "Ms. Vale? Lily wants to meet you, to thank you herself." Every instinct screamed to refuse. Meeting the child would make this real in a way that terrified her, would crack the armor wider, would invite feeling into spaces she'd spent a decade fortifying. "That won't be necessary," she said. "I know, but the offer stands." After he left, Adrienne sat in the dark office for another hour, not working, just staring at the city and wondering when she'd become the kind of person who was afraid of a 6-year-old's gratitude. The meeting with Marcus Webb the next morning confirmed her suspicions. "Mr. Cole has been exemplary," Webb said, settling into the chair across from her desk. "Since moving to day shift with overtime, his performance has actually improved. The exec floors have never been cleaner. Other employees mention how professional and courteous he is." "Then what's the issue?" Webb shifted uncomfortably. "There's no issue. I wanted to recommend him for a promotion." Adrienne's eyebrows rose. "To what position?" "Facilities coordinator. It's a supervisory role, salary increase of $18,000 annually, benefits upgrade, and it would get him off the floor crew. He's overqualified for maintenance anyway. The man has a master's degree in literature." She hadn't known that. Why is he cleaning floors with a master's degree? Medical bills. His wife died with substantial debt. Then his daughter got sick. He took the first job that offered immediate income and health insurance. Webb leaned forward. Ms. Vale, I've managed maintenance for 15 years. I can spot talent. Cole has organizational skills, leadership potential, and the kind of work ethic that's rare at any level. He deserves this opportunity. Adrienne processed the information with her usual efficiency, but something else stirred beneath the analysis, something that felt uncomfortably like pride. What's the budget impact? Minimal. The coordinator position is already approved in this year's budget. Previous guy retired last month. Then why are you asking me? You have hiring authority for supervisor-level positions. Webb met her eyes. Because you specifically flagged Cole's file. Any decisions regarding his employment require your approval. She'd forgotten doing that. The night she'd authorized Lily's treatment, she'd also placed a notation in Ethan's HR record. All employment actions require executive review, protection, she'd told herself, making sure no vindictive manager terminated him out of spite. Now it looked like something else entirely. Approve the promotion, she said, effective immediately. Thank you, Ms. Vale. I'll notify him this afternoon. Mr. Webb, one more thing. Include a signing bonus, $10,000. Webb's eyes widened. That's not standard for coordinator level. I don't care about standard. Call it a performance incentive, or call it whatever keeps HR from asking questions. After Webb left, Adrienne returned to her emails with the satisfaction of a problem efficiently solved. Ethan would have better pay, better hours, and better opportunities for advancement. His daughter would have stability. The company would benefit from his talent in a role that actually utilized it. Clean, logical, entirely rational. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Ms. Vale, this is Ethan Cole. Mr. Webb just told me about the promotion. I don't know what to say except thank you. This changes everything for my family. She stared at the message, finger hovering over the keyboard. Professional distance dictated a brief acknowledgement, maybe just a thumbs-up emoji. Instead, she typed, "You earned it through your performance. Congratulations." His response came immediately. "Lily insists I invite you to dinner to celebrate. I know you're busy, but she's very persuasive. No pressure, just an open invitation if you ever want a home-cooked meal and the company of a very grateful 6-year-old. Adrienne's chest tightened. She could already imagine it, a modest house filled with childhood clutter, the kind of warm domesticity she'd abandoned when she chose empire over family. Sitting at a dinner table with a widower and his daughter, pretending she belonged in that world. It sounded terrifying. It sounded wonderful. She typed, "Please thank Lily for the kind invitation. My schedule is quite full, but I appreciate the gesture. Professional, distant, safe." His reply, "She'll be disappointed, but she'll understand. The offer remains open." Adrienne set down her phone and returned to work, ignoring the small voice whispering that she was running from something that might actually heal her. The weeks blurred into December. Vailtech's medical division won FDA approval for 2 new treatments. Stock prices climbed. The board grudgingly admitted the employee assistance program was generating positive publicity that translated to investor confidence. Adrienne worked 16-hour days attending galas and investor meetings, making decisions that affected thousands of lives, ruling her empire with the same ruthless efficiency that had built it. And every evening, around 9 p.m., she'd hear a vacuum cleaner humming somewhere on the executive floors. Except now it wasn't Ethan. He'd moved to his coordinator role, managing schedules and supply chains from a small office on the 3rd floor. She saw him occasionally in the cafeteria or the lobby, always professional, always courteous, always distant. She told herself it was better this way, that the strange connection they'd formed during his daughter's treatment was a temporary aberration brought on by crisis and proximity, that they existed in different worlds and should stay there. But late at night, alone in her office, she'd think about a little girl drawing gardens and a man who chose dignity over survival and wonder what might have happened if she'd been brave enough to accept a dinner invitation. The Friday before Christmas, her assistant buzzed with an unusual request. "Ms. Vale, there's a visitor in the lobby asking for you. Security says she's quite insistent." "I don't have any appointments this afternoon." "I know, but she says she's Lily Cole and she brought you a present." Adrienne's heart stumbled. "Did you say Lily Cole?" "Yes, ma'am. Should I have security escort her out?" A 6-year-old had traveled to Vailtech Industries, probably with her father, though her assistant hadn't mentioned him, carrying a present for a CEO she'd never met. The rational response was to have her assistant handle it. Accept the gift through an intermediary, send a polite thank you note, maintain appropriate boundaries. Instead, Adrienne heard herself say, "Send her up." She had 5 minutes to panic. What did one say to a 6-year-old? She had no experience with children beyond her own brief pregnancy and its devastating end. Should she sit behind her desk? That seemed too intimidating. Should she stand by the window? Too casual. She was still debating when her assistant appeared with a small girl in a purple winter coat and a knit hat covering her head. Lily Cole had her father's warm brown eyes and a smile that could melt glaciers. "Miss Vale!" She rushed forward with the unself-conscious enthusiasm of childhood. "I'm Lily. Daddy's in the lobby, but I wanted to meet you myself." Adrienne found herself kneeling to be at eye level, an instinct she didn't know she possessed. "Hello, Lily. It's very nice to meet you. You're even prettier than I imagined." Lily studied her with the frank assessment of the very young. "Daddy said you were scary, but you just look sad." The observation landed like a punch. "I'm not sad." "Okay." Lily clearly didn't believe her. "I brought you a present. Daddy said I didn't have to, but I wanted to." She produced a carefully wrapped package from her coat pocket. The wrapping paper was covered in butterflies. Adrienne accepted it with hands that trembled slightly. "You didn't need to do this." "I know, but you saved my life." Lily said it simply, matter-of-factly. "Doctor, Patel says without the medicine you paid for, I might have died. So I wanted to give you something special." Inside the wrapping was a small watercolor painting, a garden bursting with flowers, rendered in the enthusiastic colors of childhood. In the center stood a woman with dark hair, arms outstretched, surrounded by butterflies. "That's you," Lily explained, pointing. "In the magic garden. See? The butterflies are bringing you all the good things you gave to other people, because that's how magic works. What you give comes back to you." Adrienne stared at the painting, vision blurring. "It's beautiful." "Do you like it? I worked really hard on getting your hair right. Daddy showed me a picture from the internet." "I love it." The words came out rough, choked. "Thank you, Lily." "You're welcome." Lily threw her arms around Adrienne's neck in an impulsive hug. "Daddy says you're too busy for dinner, but maybe sometime you could come see our garden. When spring comes and we plant it for real?" Adrienne held the small, warm body, breathing in the scent of children's shampoo and winter air, feeling something inside her crack completely open. "Maybe," she whispered. "Maybe I could do that." Lily pulled back, grinning. "Really?" "Really." "Okay, I should go. Daddy gets worried if I'm gone too long. But I'm glad I met you, Miss Vale. You have kind eyes." After she left, Adrienne sat on her office floor holding a child's watercolor and crying in a way she hadn't cried since she was 28 years old and bleeding out her future in a hospital bed. When she finally composed herself, she texted Ethan, "Your daughter is extraordinary." His response, "She gets that from her mother. But thank you. She was nervous about meeting you. She had no reason to be nervous. She thought you might be too important to talk to a kid." Adrienne looked at the painting, at the woman in the garden surrounded by returning kindness. "Tell her I'm honored she wanted to meet me. And tell her I'll come see the garden in spring. You don't have to do that." "I know, but I want to." The pause before his next message lasted so long she thought he wasn't going to respond. Then, "We'd like that, very much." That night, Adrienne hung Lily's painting in her office, right where she could see it from her desk. Her assistant noticed the next morning, eyes widening in surprise, but had the wisdom not to comment. The painting stayed there through the holidays, through the new year, through the long winter months when the city turned gray and cold. Adrienne found herself looking at it during difficult meetings, during tense negotiations, during moments when the weight of her empire felt crushing. And slowly, something shifted. She started leaving the office at 7 p.m. instead of 10, started having lunch in the cafeteria instead of at her desk, started learning the names of security guards and administrative assistants and, yes, maintenance staff. The board noticed. "You seem different," one director commented during a January meeting. "More accessible." "I'm exactly the same," Adrienne replied. But it was a lie. She ran into Ethan occasionally, in the elevator, in the parking garage, once in the cafeteria line where they both reached for the same sandwich. "You first," he said, gesturing. "We can share it." The words surprised her. They sat together, an unlikely pair, CEO and facilities coordinator, eating halves of a turkey sandwich and talking about weather, about Lily's return to school, about nothing important and everything essential. "She asks about you," Ethan said as they were clearing their trays. "Wonders when you're coming to see the garden." "I haven't forgotten." "I know, but Lily's concept of time is optimistic. In her world, spring should arrive when she wants it to, not when the calendar says so." Adrienne smiled. "I remember being that certain the world would bend to my will." "You still are. You just use corporate leverage instead of childhood faith." "Is that what I do?" "Isn't it?" He met her eyes. "You decided to save my daughter's life, and it happened. You decided to reform your company culture, and it's changing. You decided that results matter more than circumstances, and you built an empire on that principle. And what has it gotten me?" The question escaped before she could stop it. Ethan considered her seriously. "Everything you thought you wanted, and nothing you actually need." The observation should have offended her. Instead, it felt like recognition. "What do I need, Mr. Cole? Since you seem to have insights into my psychology." "The same thing everyone needs. Connection, purpose beyond profit margins. Someone to care if you make it home safely at night." "I have all of that." "Do you?" He picked up his tray. "Because, from where I'm standing, you have an office with a view and a painting from a 6-year-old who sees you more clearly than you see yourself." He walked away, leaving Adrienne alone with her half-eaten sandwich and the uncomfortable truth of his words. That evening, instead of working late, she drove to an upscale shopping district and wandered through stores she never visited. In a boutique toy shop, she found a butterfly garden kit, the kind that came with live caterpillars that transformed into butterflies you could release. She bought it, along with a book about gardens and a stuffed butterfly with purple wings. Then she sat in her car in the parking lot, staring at the shopping bag, wondering what she was doing. Buying gifts for a child she barely knew. Planning to visit a garden that didn't exist yet. Allowing herself to care about a maintenance worker. No, facilities coordinator and his daughter in ways that had nothing to do with employee retention or business strategy. Becoming human again, she realized. Allowing the armor to crack enough that light could get through. It was terrifying. She drove to Ethan's address, not to deliver the gifts, just to see the house. It was modest, probably built in the 70s, with a small front yard and lights glowing warmly in the windows. Through the front window she could see movement. Ethan and Lily sitting together on a couch, reading a book. The scene was so achingly domestic, so full of the kind of simple love she'd abandoned in her pursuit of empire, that Adrienne felt something break completely inside her. She sat in her car across the street, crying for the second time in a month, mourning the woman she'd been before grief turned her into armor and ice. Her phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. "There's a car parked across the street that looks like yours. If you're working up courage to knock, you should know we just made hot chocolate, and Lily would be thrilled to see you." Adrienne's breath caught. He'd seen her, been watching for her maybe, or just happened to notice. She could drive away, maintain the boundaries, keep the armor intact. Instead, she grabbed the shopping bag and crossed the street. Ethan opened the door before she could knock, wearing jeans and a sweater that made him look younger, more like the literature professor he'd probably meant to become. "Ms. Vale, this is a surprise." "I was in the neighborhood." The lie was transparent. "Our neighborhood doesn't have any restaurants you'd eat at or shops you'd visit. Try again." She held up the shopping bag. "I brought Lily some things. For the garden." His expression softened. "Come in, please." The house was exactly as warm as it had looked from outside. Worn but loved, full of books and Lily's artwork and the kind of casual comfort that came from actually living instead of just existing. Lily appeared from the living room, eyes widening. "Ms. Vale, you came!" "I hope it's not too late for a visit." "It's never too late for you. We're reading Charlotte's Web. Do you want to read with us?" Before Adrienne could formulate a professional refusal, she found herself on the couch with a 6-year-old pressed against her side and a book in her hands, reading about a spider who saved a pig through the power of words. Ethan watched from the doorway, expression unreadable. When the chapter ended, Lily noticed the shopping bag. "What's in there?" Adrienne handed her the gifts, watching as the child's face transformed with delight. The butterfly kit made her squeal. The book made her gasp. The stuffed butterfly got named immediately. This is magic, because that's what you are, Ms. Vale. You're magic. I'm not magic, Lily. I'm just a person. Can't persons be magic too? Ethan laughed softly. She's got you there. They had hot chocolate, real hot chocolate made with milk and cocoa powder, topped with marshmallows that Lily insisted on counting out equally. They talked about gardens and butterflies and Charlotte's Web. They existed in a bubble of warmth that had nothing to do with business strategy or corporate hierarchy. And when it was time to leave, Lily hugged Adrienne goodbye and whispered, "I'm glad you're not too busy for us anymore." Ethan walked her to the car. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for coming, for the gifts, for being brave enough to step outside your comfort zone." "I wasn't being brave, I was being selfish. I wanted to see what this felt like." What felt like? Being part of something. She gestured at the house, at the life inside. Connection. The thing you said I needed. And? It's terrifying and wonderful, and I have no idea what I'm doing. Ethan smiled. Welcome to being human. None of us know what we're doing. We just show up and try our best. I'm not good at trying. I'm good at succeeding. Well, then maybe it's time to learn that success isn't always measured in quarterly reports and stock prices. She looked at him in the streetlight. This man who'd lost his wife, nearly lost his daughter, survived humiliation and hardship and still chose dignity and grace. This man who saw through her armor and liked what he found beneath it. "I should go," she said. "You should, but I hope you'll come back." "For Lily's sake?" "For your sake," he said gently. "And maybe a little bit for mine too." Adrienne drove home through empty streets, the taste of hot chocolate still on her lips, the warmth of Lily's hug still imprinted on her chest, and for the first time in a decade, the prospect of tomorrow felt like promise instead of obligation. The visits became a ritual neither of them named, but both anticipated. Every Thursday evening, Adrienne found reasons to leave the office early. A rescheduled conference call, a client dinner that got canceled, once simply admitting she had somewhere else to be. Her assistant stopped questioning it after the third week, though her raised eyebrows spoke volumes. Thursday nights meant dinner at the Cole House, where Lily set the table with mismatched plates and insisted Adrienne sit in what she called the special guest chair, a wooden seat with a purple cushion that Sarah had apparently loved. Ethan cooked simple meals that tasted better than anything served at the five-star restaurants Adrienne usually frequented. Spaghetti with homemade sauce, roasted chicken with vegetables from the farmer's market. Once, gloriously terrible homemade pizza that Lily had insisted on helping make, resulting in uneven dough and too much cheese and laughter that made Adrienne's stomach hurt in the best way. Between January and March, she learned things about herself she'd forgotten. That she loved reading aloud, her voice bringing Charlotte's Web, and then The Secret Garden to life while Lily snuggled against her shoulder. That she was terrible at board games but fiercely competitive anyway, making Ethan laugh when she disputed the Monopoly rules. That she could exist outside her armor, could be Adrienne instead of Ms. Vale, could allow herself moments of softness without the world collapsing. But she also learned that allowing people in came with complications she hadn't anticipated. The first hint came in late February, when Adrienne arrived at the house to find Lily crying at the kitchen table, her homework spread before her like evidence of failure. "What's wrong, Butterfly?" Ethan was crouched beside his daughter, voice gentle but edged with worry. "I'm stupid." Lily threw her pencil across the room. "Everyone else understands fractions, and I don't, and misses. Henderson says I need to catch up because I miss so much school, and I'll never catch up because my brain doesn't work right anymore." "Your brain works perfectly." "No, it doesn't. The medicine made me dumb." Adrienne stood frozen in the doorway, uncertain whether her presence would help or intrude. But Lily looked up and saw her, and something in the child's face crumpled further. "I'm sorry, Ms. Vale. I'm not being brave like you said." The words hit Adrienne square in the chest. She moved without thinking, kneeling beside Lily's chair. "Who told you that being smart means understanding everything immediately?" "Mrs. Henderson says..." "Mrs. Henderson is wrong." Adrienne pulled the math worksheet closer, scanning the problems. "Being smart means knowing when to ask for help and being willing to work until you understand. Intelligence isn't about speed, it's about persistence." "But everyone else didn't spend 2 years fighting for their life." Adrienne took Lily's small hand in hers. You are the bravest, strongest person I know. And if fractions are hard right now, we'll work on them until they're not. Okay? Lily sniffled. You'll help me? Every Thursday, we'll make you a fraction expert. They spent an hour at that kitchen table, Adrienne explaining denominators and numerators with a patience she didn't know she possessed, breaking down concepts into stories about sharing pizza and dividing butterflies into groups. By the end, Lily was solving problems independently, her earlier tears replaced with concentration. I did it! She held up her completed worksheet triumphantly. Ms. Vale, look! I did all of them. You did. I'm very proud of you. Can we do this every week? Math homework together? Adrienne glanced at Ethan, who was watching from the kitchen doorway with an expression she couldn't quite read. If your father doesn't mind me invading your home for educational purposes, I think we can accommodate that, Ethan said softly. Though I should warn you, once Lily decides you're part of her world, there's no escape. Maybe I don't want to escape. The words hung between them, weighted with meaning neither was ready to fully examine. After Lily went to bed, Adrienne stayed to help Ethan clean the kitchen, another ritual she'd fallen into, standing shoulder to shoulder at the sink while he washed and she dried, talking about everything and nothing. You were good with her tonight, Ethan said, handing her a soapy plate. The math tutoring, but also the emotional support. She needed both. I just told her the truth. She's brave. She thinks you hung the moon, you know, talks about you constantly at school, Miss Vale this, Mrs. Vale that. Her teacher probably thinks she has an imaginary friend. Adrienne dried the plate carefully, hyper-aware of Ethan's proximity in the small kitchen. And what do you think? I think you've become something I didn't expect. Which is? He turned off the water, facing her directly. Essential. To Lily, certainly, but also to me. The confession landed between them like a dropped glass, sharp and impossible to ignore. Ethan, I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I know this is complicated. You're still my employer, technically. And there's Lily to consider. And Sarah's memory. And the fact that our lives don't make any logical sense together. I just wanted you to know that these Thursday nights have become the highlight of my week. That when I see your car pull up, something in my chest unclenches. That I've started measuring time in the days until you come back. Adrienne set down the dish towel with shaking hands. I can't do this. I know, no, you don't know. She took a step back, needing distance, needing air. 10 years ago, I lost a baby, and it broke something in me. I built walls so high that nothing could hurt me again. And then you walked into my boardroom and refused to bow, and your daughter painted me into a garden, and somehow you both got inside those walls. And now I'm terrified because I don't know how to do this. How to care about people without losing them. How to be part of a family when family is the thing that destroyed me. Ethan listened without interrupting, his brown eyes steady and patient. I come here every Thursday, Adrienne continued, voice cracking, and I pretend I'm just being kind, just fulfilling an obligation or maintaining a professional relationship. But the truth is I come here because this house feels like home in a way my penthouse never has. Because Lily makes me laugh, and you make me think, and together you make me believe I might be capable of being more than just a CEO who built an empire out of grief. Then why can't you do this? Because what happens when it falls apart? When you realize I'm too broken, too damaged, too used to being alone? When Lily gets attached, and then I fail her the way I fail everyone who gets too close? Ethan crossed the distance between them in 2 steps, taking her hands in his. His palms were warm, calloused from years of manual labor before the promotion. Adrienne, he said, and the sound of her first name in his voice nearly undid her. You haven't failed anyone. You saved my daughter's life. You changed your entire company culture to prioritize humanity over profit. You show up every Thursday even though it scares you, because being brave doesn't mean not being afraid. It means being afraid and choosing connection anyway. What if I'm not strong enough? You're the strongest person I know. You just measure strength in the wrong currency. He squeezed her hands gently. Strength isn't about being invulnerable. It's about being vulnerable and surviving anyway. She wanted to argue, to retreat behind her armor, to run back to the safety of her office and her empire and her carefully controlled world. Instead, she leaned forward and kissed him. It was brief, tentative, loaded with years of grief and loneliness and desperate hope. When she pulled back, Ethan's eyes were wide with surprise. "I can't promise I won't mess this up," she whispered. "I can't promise I know how to be what you and Lily need." "I'm not asking for promises. I'm asking for a chance. What if I hurt her? What if you don't?" He touched her face gently. "What if we build something good? What if we choose to believe that people can heal, that second chances exist, that love doesn't always end in loss?" Adrienne closed her eyes, breathing through the fear and the possibility warring in her chest. "I need time to figure out what this means, to make sure I'm doing this for the right reasons. Take all the time you need. We'll be here." She left shortly after, driving home through streets that seemed different somehow, brighter, more full of potential. In her penthouse apartment, surrounded by expensive furniture and city views, she sat on her couch and allowed herself to imagine a different life. One where Thursday nights became every night, where Lily's homework lived permanently on her coffee table, where Ethan's presence beside her was constant instead of weekly. The thought terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. The next morning, her assistant noticed immediately. "You look different." "I look exactly the same." "No, you look happy. It's unsettling." Adrienne laughed, actually laughed in her office, and her assistant's eyebrows climbed higher. "Should I be concerned?" the younger woman asked carefully. "Probably. I'm considering making poor life choices." "Personal or professional? Does it matter?" Her assistant considered this. "Only if the personal choices affect your professional judgment. Are they?" Adrienne thought about Ethan's promotion, about the medical assistance program, about every decision she'd made since a janitor interrupted her board meeting with news of a family emergency. "Yes," she admitted, "they absolutely are." "Good," her assistant said, surprising her. "The professional-only version of you was brilliant but exhausting. The version who leaves at 7 on Thursdays and smiles at security guards is someone I'd actually want to work for long-term." The observation stayed with Adrienne through morning meetings, through a tense negotiation with investors, through lunch at her desk where she ate takeout salad and thought about homemade spaghetti sauce. She was different, had been changing slowly since November, shedding layers of armor she'd worn so long she'd forgotten what her real self looked like underneath. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lily. Ethan had apparently given his daughter permission to message her, which felt significant. The message was a photo of the butterfly garden kit they'd set up together, now showing tiny caterpillars munching on leaves. "They're getting bigger. Miss Maple says they'll make cocoons soon. Can you come see them before they turn into butterflies? Daddy says Thursday is too far away." Adrienne stared at the message, at the casual assumption that she'd want to witness this small miracle, at the ease with which a 6-year-old had woven her into the fabric of daily life. She typed back, "I have a meeting until 6. Would 7 work?" The response was immediate. "Yes! Daddy's making tacos." So Adrienne left the office at 6:30, ignoring her assistant's knowing smile, and drove to the Cole house on a Tuesday evening because a child wanted to show her caterpillars and because saying no felt impossible. Ethan answered the door with flour on his shirt and surprise in his eyes. "You came." Lily was very insistent about the caterpillars. "She's always insistent, but you've never come on a Tuesday before." "Maybe I'm tired of waiting for Thursdays." Something heated in his expression. "Come in. Tacos are almost ready." Lily was in the living room, kneeling before the butterfly habitat with the reverence of someone witnessing magic. "Ms. Vale, look how big they are. This one, I named him Charlie, is already twice the size he was yesterday." Adrienne knelt beside her, watching the caterpillars move slowly across leaves. "They're remarkable. Miss Maple says they'll stay in their cocoons for 2 weeks, and then they'll emerge as butterflies, and we can release them in our garden. Except we don't have a garden yet, so maybe we can release them in the backyard, and they'll know to stay for when the garden is ready." "That sounds perfect. Will you be here? When we release them?" "It's supposed to happen in April." April. 2 months away. An eternity in 6-year-old time, but barely a moment in the span of a life. "If you want me here, I'll be here." "I want you here for everything," Lily said matter-of-factly. "I want you to be here for dinner every night and for homework and for bedtime stories and for when I'm scared and for when I'm happy. I want you to be part of our family." The declaration hung in the air, impossibly pure and devastatingly direct. Ethan appeared in the doorway. Lily, we talked about this. Ms. Vale has her own life, but she could have our life too. Lily turned pleading eyes to Adrienne. Couldn't you? You said you come here because it feels like home, so why can't it be your home too? Out of the mouths of children, Adrienne thought, came truths adults were too afraid to speak. It's not that simple, Butterfly. Why not? You like us. We like you. Daddy makes you smile in a way nobody else does. I've seen it. And you make him less sad, which is important because he's been sad since Mommy died, and I want him to be happy again. Adrienne looked at Ethan helplessly, but his expression offered no escape. He was as caught by his daughter's honesty as she was. Lily, Adrienne said carefully, becoming part of a family is a big decision. It's something your dad and I would need to talk about a lot. And even if we did, it wouldn't happen quickly. These things take time. How much time? I don't know. What if we don't have a lot of time? What if something bad happens and we wait too long and then it's too late? Lily's voice cracked. I almost died. I know that's scary to talk about, but it's true. And I learned that waiting for things means you might never get them. So if you like us and we like you, why are we waiting? The question, asked with such raw vulnerability, hit Adrienne like a physical blow. Because children who'd faced mortality understood urgency in ways adults forgot. Because waiting felt safe. But safety was an illusion. Because life was fragile and precious, and sometimes the brave choice was leaping instead of calculating. You're right, Adrienne said quietly. Waiting because I'm scared isn't fair to any of us. So you'll think about it? Really think about it? I promise. Lily hugged her fiercely, then bounded off to wash her hands for dinner, leaving Adrienne and Ethan alone with the weight of a 6-year-old's hopes. I'm sorry, Ethan said. She's been fixated on this since last week. I tried to explain that adult relationships are complicated. She's not wrong, though. Adrienne stood, brushing off her designer slacks. About any of it. I do like you both. This does feel like home, and I'm scared, but maybe that's exactly why I should stop waiting. Adrienne, I'm not ready to make big declarations or promises I'm not sure I can keep, but I'm ready to try, to see what this could become if we're both brave enough. Ethan closed the distance between them, cupping her face in his hands. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm just asking you to be present. I can do present. Then that's enough. For now, for always, it's enough. They stood there in the living room, surrounded by children's drawings and butterfly habitats and the accumulated warmth of a house built on love and loss and survival, and kissed like two people choosing hope over fear. Dinner was chaotic and perfect. Lily insisted on teaching Adrienne the proper way to assemble tacos. Cheese first, then lettuce, then tomatoes, and salsa last. Or it makes everything soggy, Ms. Vale. This is very important. And told elaborate stories about her school day that probably bore only passing resemblance to reality. Ethan watched them with an expression Adrienne was learning to recognize, contentment mixed with disbelief, like he couldn't quite believe this was his life now. After dinner, after homework and dishes, and the nightly ritual of getting a 6-year-old ready for bed, Adrienne found herself reading The Secret Garden in Lily's bedroom while the girl fought sleep with diminishing success. Ms. Vale? Lily's voice was drowsy, eyes half closed. If you become part of our family, will I call you something else? Because Ms. Vale sounds like you're still my dad's boss. The question lodged somewhere in Adrienne's throat. What would you want to call me? I don't know. Adrienne seems weird, and I can't call you Mom because I have a mom in heaven, and that would be confusing. Those are good points. Maybe I could call you Adri. That's like a nickname, but it's also special because only I would call you that. Adrienne's vision blurred. I would be honored if you called me Audrey. Okay, good night, Audrey. I love you. The words were said with the casual ease of childhood, but they hit Adrienne with the force of revelation. Love, freely given, without conditions or contracts or fear. I love you too, Butterfly, she whispered, and meant it with an intensity that scared her. Downstairs, Ethan was on the couch with 2 glasses of wine, looking nervous. I heard about the nickname. She's very decisive. She's very attached. He handed her a glass. Is this moving too fast? I can talk to her. Slow things down. Don't. Adrienne sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. Don't slow it down because you think I can't handle it. If I'm doing this, I want to do it all the way. No half measures, no hedging bets. Either I'm all in or I'm not in at all. And which are you? She thought about Lily's sleepy declaration of love, about Tuesday night tacos and Thursday night fractions, about a butterfly garden waiting to bloom and a man who'd refused to bow to her intimidation and somehow made her believe in second chances. I'm all in, she said. Terrified and uncertain and probably going to make mistakes, but all in. Ethan set down his wine glass and pulled her close, kissing her with a thoroughness that made her forget every reason this was complicated. When they broke apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. So what does this mean, practically speaking? It means I'm going to need to tell my board that I'm dating an employee. Technically, I work in facilities. We're not in the same chain of command. Still a potential conflict of interest, especially given that I personally authorized your promotion and your daughter's medical coverage. Is this going to cause problems? Adrienne considered the potential fallout. Accusations of favoritism, questions about her judgment, possible scandal that could affect stock prices and investor confidence. Probably, she admitted, but I've handled worse, and I'm not willing to choose my company over my personal life anymore. I did that once, and it cost me everything. I'm not making that mistake again. What if the board demands you choose? Then they can find a new CEO. The declaration shocked her even as she said it, but the moment the words were out, she knew they were true. She'd built Vailtech from nothing, had sacrificed everything for its success. But she'd also learned that empires built on loneliness were hollow victories. You'd really do that? Ethan asked carefully. Walk away from everything you've built? I'd do it in a heartbeat. But I'm hoping it won't come to that. I'm hoping that the board will see that a CEO with personal connections and investment in work-life balance is actually better for the company than a robot who sacrifices everything for quarterly earnings. And if they don't, then we'll figure it out together. That's what people in relationships do, right? Face challenges as a team? I think so. I've been out of practice for a while. Me too. She leaned into his warmth, allowing herself this moment of peace before the inevitable complications began. Ethan, tell me about Sarah. If we're doing this, I need to know her story, need to understand what I'm stepping into. He was quiet for a long moment, and Adrienne thought maybe she'd pushed too far. But then he began to speak, voice soft with memory. We met in college. She was an art major, I was literature. We bonded over a shared love of magical realism and terrible coffee. She was everything I wasn't, spontaneous, creative, fearless. She painted murals and taught art to kids and believed the world was fundamentally good, even when evidence suggested otherwise. She sounds wonderful. She was. And when she got pregnant with Lily, she was terrified and thrilled in equal measure. We got married at City Hall with 2 friends as witnesses and spent our honeymoon camping in state parks because we couldn't afford anything else. He smiled sadly. She would have loved that we were broke and happy. Said money made people boring. What happened? The accident? Drunk driver. Wrong place, wrong time. She died instantly. Lily was strapped in her car seat in the back, barely scratched. I was driving, and I've spent 3 years trying to forgive myself for not seeing that truck run the light, for not reacting faster, for surviving when she didn't. Adrienne took his hand, threading their fingers together. It wasn't your fault. I know that intellectually, but grief isn't intellectual. It's visceral and irrational, and it doesn't care about fault or logic. Does it bother you that I'm nothing like her? Ethan turned to face her fully. You're not replacing Sarah. Nobody could, but you're also not competing with her memory. You're your own person, offering something different, something I need in ways I didn't realize until you walked into our lives. What do I offer? Stability, strength, the kind of fierce competence that makes me believe everything will actually be okay. Sarah taught me to dream. You're teaching me that dreams can coexist with practical reality. That's the most romantic description of practical reality I've ever heard. He laughed, pulling her closer. See? You make even logistics sound appealing. They stayed on the couch until midnight, talking about logistics and dreams and the terrifying prospect of building something new from the broken pieces of their pasts. When Adrienne finally left, driving home through empty streets with the taste of wine and possibility on her lips, she felt something she hadn't felt in a decade. She felt hopeful. The next morning, she called an emergency board meeting. 12 directors assembled in the conference room, confusion evident on their faces. Emergency meetings meant crisis. Acquisitions falling through, scandals emerging, financial disasters requiring immediate response. Instead, Adrienne stood at the head of the table and said, "I'm dating an employee, Ethan Cole, facilities coordinator. Before you ask, yes, this is the same employee whose daughter's medical treatment I personally authorized. No, there was no relationship at the time. Yes, I'm aware of the potential conflicts of interest. And no, I'm not ending the relationship." Silence crashed through the room like a wave. Richard Brennan, the silver-haired director who'd once sympathized with Ethan in a hallway, spoke first. "Ms. Vale, while we appreciate your transparency, surely you understand the optics." "I understand perfectly. I also understand that I've given this company everything for 10 years, every waking hour, every ounce of energy, every piece of myself I had to offer. And in return, Vailtech is worth $3 billion, employs 15,000 people, and is revolutionizing medical technology. I think I've earned the right to have a personal life." "Nobody's saying you haven't," another director interjected. "But dating a subordinate creates liability issues. What if the relationship ends badly? What if he claims harassment or coercion? Ethan Cole has more integrity in his little finger than most people have in their entire bodies. He won't make false claims. And if the relationship ends badly, I'll handle it like an adult. The shareholders want a CEO who makes sound decisions and drives profit growth. I've delivered both consistently. My personal life doesn't change that." Brennan leaned forward. "Adrienne, off the record, this is about more than just dating an employee, isn't it? This is about the man whose daughter you saved, the one who challenged you in ways nobody else dared." "Yes," she said simply. "It's about all of that and more. It's about becoming someone I'm not ashamed to see in the mirror. It's about building a company culture that values humanity alongside profit. And it's about recognizing that the version of me who sacrificed everything for this boardroom was miserable and alone and one crisis away from burning out completely." The directors exchanged glances, silent communication passing between them. Finally, Brennan spoke. "If we support this, and I'm not saying we do, what safeguards are you proposing? How do we protect the company from accusations of favoritism or misconduct?" "Full disclosure to HR. Ethan reports to Marcus Webb, not to me or anyone in my direct chain. His performance reviews are handled independently. Any future promotions or compensation changes go through normal channels with board oversight. And if there's even a hint of impropriety, I'll recuse myself from the decision." "That's reasonable," another director admitted grudgingly. "But Adrienne, understand that we're trusting you. Your judgment has been sound so far, but if this becomes a liability, then I'll resign. No fight, no drama, just a clean exit." The words hung in the air, final and irrevocable. "You'd really walk away?" Brennan asked quietly. "In a heartbeat. Because I've learned something these past few months. Companies can be rebuilt. Careers can be reinvented. But people, real connections, genuine love, those are irreplaceable. And I'm not losing something irreplaceable to protect something that would survive perfectly well without me." The vote, when it came, was 11-1 in favor of supporting her relationship with appropriate safeguards. Only one director objected, citing concerns about precedent and professionalism. Adrienne thanked them all for their consideration and left the meeting feeling lighter than she had in years. Her assistant was waiting outside with raised eyebrows. "That was fast." Sometimes clarity makes things simple. "So you're really doing this? Dating the facilities coordinator?" "I'm really doing this." "Good." Her assistant smiled genuinely. "He makes you human. I like you human." Adrienne laughed, retreating to her office to call Ethan with the news. He answered on the second ring, voice worried. "Everything okay?" "Better than okay. I told the board. They're supporting us." "Adrienne, I know it's fast, I know it's complicated, but I'm tired of waiting for perfect circumstances. Life is messy and uncertain. And if these past months have taught me anything, it's that waiting for safety means missing out on everything that matters." "I love you." The words came out rushed, like he'd been holding them back. I know it's too soon and too intense and probably insane, but I love you. Your strength and your vulnerability, and the way you kneel on kitchen floors to teach fractions, and the way you look at Lily like she hung the moon. I love all of it. Adrian's eyes burned. I love you too. And you're right. It's too soon and too intense and definitely insane, but it's also real. And I'm done running from real things just because they're scary. So what now? Now we figure it out together, one day at a time, with Thursday night dinners and Tuesday night tacos and butterfly gardens and all the messy, complicated, beautiful reality that comes with choosing each other. Sounds perfect, Ethan said softly. Absolutely perfect. Spring arrived with the kind of gentle insistence that made believers out of cynics. The caterpillars transformed into chrysalises exactly as promised, hanging like tiny jade teardrops in their habitat, while Lily monitored their progress with the dedication of a scientist and the wonder of a child who still believed in magic. Adrienne moved through those weeks in a state of cautious joy, learning to navigate a life that extended beyond boardrooms and profit margins. She kept a change of clothes in her car, jeans and sweaters that felt foreign against her skin after years of designer suits. She learned that Lily's school pickup line moved faster if you arrived 15 minutes early. She discovered that grocery shopping with a 6-year-old took 3 times longer, but was infinitely more entertaining. And she learned that loving Ethan Cole was nothing like the careful, calculated relationship she'd had with her ex-husband. This was messy and immediate and terrifyingly real. He kissed her in the kitchen while pasta boiled over. He fell asleep on her shoulder during movies Lily insisted they watch together. He looked at her like she was extraordinary for doing ordinary things, like being present was its own kind of miracle. But spring also brought complications neither of them had anticipated. The first arrived on a Wednesday morning when Adrienne's assistant buzzed her office with unusual urgency. "Miss Vale, there's a woman in the lobby demanding to see you. She says she's Ethan Cole's sister-in-law." Adrienne's stomach dropped. Sarah's sister. She'd known this meeting was inevitable, but had hoped for more time to prepare. "Send her up." The woman who entered 5 minutes later was in her early 30s with Sarah's golden hair and eyes that blazed with protective fury. She wore yoga pants and a sweatshirt that read Mama Bear, and she looked at Adrienne like she was assessing a threat. "I'm Rebecca Thompson," she said without preamble. "Sarah's older sister, and we need to talk about what you're doing to my family." Adrienne gestured to the chairs facing her desk. "Please sit." "I'll stand. This won't take long." Rebecca crossed her arms. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing with Ethan and Lily, but it needs to stop." "I'm not playing a game, aren't you?" A billionaire CEO swoops in to save the dying kid, plays fairy godmother with experimental treatments, promotes the grieving dad, and suddenly you're playing house with my sister's family? Rebecca's voice cracked. "Sarah's been gone 3 years and you're trying to replace her." "I'm not trying to replace anyone." "Then what are you doing? Because from where I'm standing, you saw a vulnerable man and a sick child and decided they'd make a nice charity project, something to make you feel good about yourself." The accusation stung precisely because Adrienne had asked herself the same questions during sleepless nights. Was she using Ethan and Lily to fill the void left by her own losses? Was this genuine connection or elaborate self-deception? "I love them," Adrienne said quietly. "I didn't plan to. I didn't expect to. But I do." "You barely know them." "I know that Ethan reads the same page of a book 3 times when he's tired. I know that Lily arranges her stuffed animals by size every night before bed and panics if they're out of order. I know that they both still cry sometimes when they talk about Sarah, and that's okay because grief doesn't have an expiration date. I know that Ethan makes the same terrible dad jokes Sarah apparently loved, and that Lily inherited her mother's talent for drawing and her stubbornness." Rebecca's arms loosened slightly. "Ethan talks about Sarah with you?" "All the time. I asked him to. I wanted to understand who she was, what she meant to them. I'm not trying to erase her memory. I'm trying to honor it by being worthy of the space she left behind." "That's a pretty speech." "It's the truth." Adrienne stood moving around her desk to face Rebecca directly. "I understand why you're protecting them. Sarah was your sister. Lily is your niece. Ethan is family by marriage and grief. You've watched them suffer and you don't want them hurt again. I respect that. But I'm not the enemy here." Then what are you? I'm someone who got a second chance at happiness and is trying not to screw it up. I'm someone who learned that building empires doesn't fill the holes in your heart. I'm someone who loves your niece and her father and wants to build a life with them if they'll have me. Rebecca studied her for a long moment. Lily called me last week, told me all about Audrey and how wonderful you are. She hasn't been that excited about anything since before she got sick. She's an extraordinary child. She is, and she's been through hell. If you hurt her, if you decide this suburban family life isn't exciting enough and walk away, it will destroy her. She's already lost one mother. She can't lose another. The weight of that responsibility settled on Adrienne's shoulders like a mantle. I know. Do you? Because this isn't like running a company. You can't just delegate when it gets hard. Kids are messy and exhausting, and they need you even when it's inconvenient. Can you really do that? Can the woman who built a billion-dollar empire handle a 6-year-old's temper tantrum at Target? I don't know, Adrienne admitted. I've never tried, but I'm willing to learn. And I'm willing to fail and try again, because that's what love requires, showing up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Rebecca's expression softened incrementally. Ethan thinks you walk on water. It's actually kind of annoying how much he talks about you. The feeling is mutual. Sarah would have liked that. She always said Ethan needed someone who could challenge him intellectually, someone who matched his intensity. Rebecca's voice wavered. I miss her every single day, and the thought of someone else taking her place makes me irrationally angry. I'm not taking her place. I'm just trying to make a new one. I know, logically I know that, but emotions aren't logical. Rebecca wiped her eyes roughly. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why them? You could have anyone. Why choose a widower with a kid and medical bills and all the complications that come with that? Adrienne thought about how to answer, about all the rational explanations she could offer. Instead, she told the truth. Because Ethan saw me at my worst, when I was cruel and cold and everything I'm not proud of, and he refused to bow. Because Lily looked at my armor and decided I needed a butterfly garden. Because they made me want to be human again. And because when I'm with them, I'm not a CEO or a success story or someone who spent 10 years running from grief. I'm just Adrienne, and that version of myself is someone I actually like. Rebecca nodded slowly. Okay. Okay? I'm not saying I approve. I'm saying I'll give you a chance. But I'm watching, and if you hurt them, you'll make my life miserable. I understand. No, you don't. Rebecca smiled for the first time, and it was fierce. If you hurt them, I'll make you wish you'd never left your boardroom. I know people. People who know how to make CEOs very uncomfortable. Noted. After Rebecca left, Adrienne sat at her desk for a long time, staring at Lily's butterfly painting on the wall. She'd wanted this relationship to exist in a bubble, just her and Ethan and Lily, building something new without outside interference. But real life didn't work that way. Real life included protective sisters and complicated histories, and the ghosts of people who'd loved first. She texted Ethan. Had a visit from Rebecca. We talked. I think we understand each other now. His response was immediate. She called me. Said you passed the Don't Hurt My Family test. High praise from Rebecca. She's terrifying when she wants to be. I noticed. Are you okay? I know having her involved is complicated. It's actually good. Rebecca loves Sarah like crazy. And if she's willing to accept you, it means we're doing this right. Building on the past instead of trying to erase it. Adrienne smiled at her phone, feeling something tight in her chest loosen. When did you get so wise? Around the third time I had to explain fractions using pizza metaphors. Adversity breeds wisdom. Speaking of pizza, I'm craving the terrible homemade kind. Think Lily would want to make some tonight? She'd want to make some every night if you let her. See you at 6? 6 is perfect. That evening, standing in Ethan's kitchen with flour on her designer blouse and tomato sauce on her hands, while Lily directed pizza construction with the authority of a tiny Gordon Ramsay, Adrienne realized something fundamental had shifted. This wasn't visiting anymore. This wasn't playing house or testing boundaries. This was home. Audrey, you're putting too much cheese on that side, Lily instructed, pointing at the lopsided pizza. It has to be even, or it cooks weird. My apologies, chef. How's this? Better. Daddy, is Adri staying over tonight? Ethan, who'd been chopping vegetables, nearly cut his finger. Lily, that's not appropriate to ask. Why not? She stays late lots of times, and her toothbrush is in our bathroom. So I thought maybe she was staying over sometimes. Adrienne and Ethan exchanged glances over Lily's head. They'd been carefully navigating physical boundaries, with Adrienne leaving by 11 most nights. But Lily's observation was accurate. She'd gradually accumulated belongings in the house. A toothbrush, a phone charger, comfortable clothes in the guest room, the signs of slow, inevitable integration. Would it bother you if I stayed over sometimes? Adrienne asked carefully. Lily considered this with the seriousness she applied to all important decisions. Would you stay in Daddy's room or the guest room? Lily, Ethan's face flushed. It's a valid question, Adrienne said gently. And the answer is that your dad and I are still figuring that out. But whatever we decide, nothing changes with you and me. I'm still here for bedtime stories and homework help and butterfly releases. Okay, I just wanted to know because Jenny at school said her mom's boyfriend stays over and he's mean in the mornings before coffee, and I wanted to make sure you wouldn't be mean. I promised to be pleasant even before coffee. Good, because we only have decaf, and Daddy says decaf is a crime against humanity. After Lily went to bed, full of terrible pizza and contentment, Ethan and Adrienne sat on the back porch watching fireflies begin their nightly dance. I'm sorry about the staying over question, Ethan said. She's getting too comfortable asking invasive questions. She's 6, and she's trying to understand what this relationship means for her world. That's healthy. Adrienne leaned against his shoulder. Although it does raise a valid point, we've been avoiding the conversation about what this actually looks like. Long term, I mean. Because it's terrifying. Because it's terrifying, she agreed. But also because I think we both know where this is heading, and saying it out loud makes it real. Ethan took her hand, threading their fingers together in the darkness. I want you here. Not just on Thursdays or Tuesdays or whenever you can spare time from the office. I want you here every day. I want to wake up next to you and argue about coffee preferences and navigate Lily's homework together and build an actual life instead of this careful dance we're doing. I want that too. But I'm scared. Not of commitment. I'm surprisingly okay with that. I'm scared of failing, of not being enough for Lily when she really needs a mother figure, of my work consuming everything again, of the board deciding this is too much liability and forcing me to choose, of Sarah's ghost and whether I can ever live up to what she was. You're not supposed to live up to Sarah. You're supposed to be yourself, which is more than enough. He turned to face her, cupping her jaw gently. And as for the other fears, we'll handle them together. That's what partners do. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to be present. I can do present. Then let's stop dancing around this. Move in with us. Not next month or next year now. Bring your things and your complicated schedule and your terrible organizational habits. I have excellent organizational habits. You have 17 different systems for organizing documents, and they all contradict each other. I've seen your briefcase. She laughed despite the tears threatening. Fair point. So, will you move in? Will you let us be your family? The question hung between them, weighted with possibility and terror and hope. Yes, Adrienne said, but I have conditions. Of course you do. I want to talk to Lily first, make sure she understands what this means. And I want to tell my parents, they're retired in Arizona, and we barely speak. But they should know I'm essentially becoming a stepmother. And I want to do this gradually. Not show up with all my belongings one day. Give everyone time to adjust. Those are reasonable conditions. And one more thing. I want us to talk to a family therapist. Not because something's wrong, but because blending a family is complicated and I want to do it right. I want Lily to have space to process her feelings about me joining the family. I want you to have support navigating this. I want professional guidance for what I'm sure will be inevitable challenges. Ethan kissed her softly. You continue to surprise me with your practicality. Someone has to be practical. You're too busy being optimistic about everything. It's called hope, darling. You should try it sometime. I am trying it. That's why I'm saying yes to moving in despite every instinct telling me to protect myself. They sat in comfortable silence, watching fireflies and imagining the future taking shape around them. The conversation with Lily happened 3 days later on a Saturday morning when they made pancakes together in the kitchen. Butterfly, Audrey and I want to talk to you about something important, Ethan began, flipping a pancake with less grace than usual. Nerves made him clumsy. Are you getting married? Lily asked immediately, eyes wide with hope. Not yet, Adrian said quickly, but I'm going to move in with you and your dad, if that's okay with you. Lily's face cycled through surprise, joy, and then unexpected solemnity. Will you sleep in Daddy's room? Eventually, yes. Is that okay? I think so. Lily pushed her orange juice around the table. Can I ask something that might be sad? Of course. If you move in, does that mean you're my new mom? Because I already have a mom in heaven, and I don't want her to think I forgot about her. Adrian's heart cracked. She knelt beside Lily's chair, taking the small hands in hers. I'm not your new mom. I'm Audrey. Your mom will always be your mom, and nothing can change that. But I want to be someone who loves you and takes care of you and is here for all the things moms do. Like a bonus person who loves you, not a replacement. Like having two moms? Kind of. One in heaven who gave you life and will always be special, and one here who gets to watch you grow up and helps with homework and celebrates your victories. Lily processed this carefully. Jenny at school has two houses because her parents are divorced. She says it's confusing. Will this be confusing? Maybe sometimes, Adrian admitted. Change is usually a little confusing at first, but we'll figure it out together. And if you ever feel sad or angry or confused, you can talk to Daddy or me or both of us, okay? Okay. Lily threw her arms around Adrian's neck. I'm really happy you're moving in. Our house feels better when you're here, like it's not so sad anymore. Ethan turned away to wipe his eyes, overcome by his daughter's simple wisdom. Later, while Lily watched cartoons, he pulled Adrian close in the kitchen. She's right. The house does feel better with you here. Less haunted by what we lost. More full of what we're building. I'm still terrified I'll screw this up. Good. Fear means you care. Complacency is what screws things up. He kissed her forehead. When do you want to start moving things? Next weekend? Give me time to pack essentials and talk to my landlord about breaking my lease. You're really doing this. I'm really doing this. The move happened in stages, just as Adrian had planned. First, clothes and toiletries, then books and personal items. Finally, the larger pieces, her favorite armchair that Lily immediately claimed for reading time. The coffee maker Ethan admitted was superior to his ancient one. The framed photographs of her parents and younger brother that she'd kept hidden in her penthouse, but now displayed on the living room shelf. With each box unpacked, each belonging integrated into the house's ecosystem, Adrian felt herself settling into a life she'd never imagined wanting. She negotiated with Lily over closet space, but Audrey, you have so many shoes and I need room for my art supplies, and learned that Ethan sang off-key in the shower and that the house's hot water heater had personality quirks that required patient understanding. She also learned that family therapy was simultaneously the best and hardest decision she'd made. Their therapist, Dr. Chen, was in her 50s with kind eyes and a talent for asking questions that forced uncomfortable honesty. Adrian, talk to me about guilt, Dr. Chen said during their third session. You mentioned feeling guilty about being happy. Explore that. Adrian glanced at Ethan, then down at her hands. I lost a baby 10 years ago. I told myself I didn't deserve another chance at family, that I'd failed the first time and should focus on things I was good at, like running a company. And now here I am, playing mother to someone else's child. And part of me feels like I'm getting something I don't deserve. Why don't you deserve happiness? Because I chose work over my pregnancy. I could have taken it easy, could have stepped back, but I didn't. I pushed too hard and my body gave up, and a baby died because I couldn't balance ambition with care. The words hung in the air, raw and terrible. Ethan reached for her hand. That's not what happened. Miscarriages happen. They're nobody's fault. But what if it was? What if I could have prevented it and didn't? Then you made a mistake, Dr. Chen said gently. And you've spent 10 years punishing yourself. The question is whether you're ready to forgive yourself and accept that you deserve a second chance. I don't know if I can. Then let's work on that. Because Lily deserves someone who's fully present, not someone haunted by self-recrimination. And you deserve to experience joy without guilt poisoning it. The sessions continued weekly, sometimes all three of them, sometimes just Adrienne, occasionally Ethan and Lily without her. Slowly, painfully, they built new foundations for their blended family. Spring deepened into early summer. The butterflies emerged from their chrysalises on a Sunday afternoon in late April, wings wet and crumpled, gradually unfurling into stunning orange and black patterns. Lily was beside herself with excitement. "They're ready! We have to release them in the garden!" "We don't have a garden yet, Butterfly," Ethan reminded her gently. "Then we'll plant one today, right now. Adri, you said you'd help." So they did. All afternoon they worked in the backyard, Ethan tilling soil, Adrian reading planting instructions from her phone, Lily directing operations with boundless enthusiasm. They planted roses and lavender and wildflowers, creating organized chaos that would, theoretically, bloom into beauty. At sunset, they gathered in the backyard with the butterfly habitat. Lily opened the mesh door carefully, following the instructions Adrian had researched obsessively. The first butterfly emerged tentatively, testing new wings. Then it flew, up into the golden light, circling the garden once as if blessing it, before disappearing into the gathering dusk. One by one, the others followed. Charlie and the rest of the butterflies Lily had named and loved, all taking flight into their new lives. "They're free," Lily whispered, watching them go with tears streaming down her face. "We gave them life, and now they're free." "That's what love does," Adrian said softly, pulling Lily close. "It gives life, and then sets it free to become what it's meant to be." Ethan wrapped his arms around both of them, the three of them standing in their muddy garden surrounded by the promise of growth, and for the first time since she was 28 years old, Adrian felt complete. That night, after Lily finally fell asleep from exhaustion and wonder, Adrian and Ethan sat on the back porch watching the stars emerge. "I have something for you," Ethan said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Adrian's heart stopped. "Ethan, it's not what you think. Open it." Inside was a silver necklace with a small butterfly pendant, delicate and perfect. "I noticed you never wear jewelry," he said, fastening it around her neck. "Too practical for accessories. But I thought maybe you'd wear this. A reminder that transformation is possible. That butterflies exist because caterpillars are brave enough to completely break down and rebuild themselves into something new." She touched the pendant, feeling tears slip down her cheeks. "It's perfect." "You're perfect. Not in the sense of being flawless. You're actually kind of a disaster in the kitchen, and your filing system makes me want to cry. But perfect in the sense of being exactly what we need. What Lily needs. What I need." "I love you," she said fiercely. "I love you and Lily, and this chaotic life we're building, and even the terrible pizza we make together. The pizza really is terrible. The worst. But we keep making it anyway. Because it's ours," Adrian said, "and that makes it perfect." They sat in the darkness, wrapped in each other, and the certainty that they were building something that would last. Something worth the risk of breaking down armor and exposing vulnerable hearts. Something that proved second chances were real if you were brave enough to reach for them. And somewhere in the night, butterflies danced among flowers that hadn't yet bloomed, believing in transformation, believing in magic, believing that broken things could be made beautiful again through patience and love and the courage to begin again. Summer arrived with the kind of heat that made the garden explode into color. The roses Lily had insisted on planting climbed their trellis with determination, and the wildflowers created a riot of purple and yellow that attracted butterflies every afternoon. Lily would sit among them for hours, sketching in the art journal Adrian had given her, capturing wings and petals with the same fierce concentration her mother had once brought to her murals. Adrienne settled into her new life with the methodical approach she applied to everything, creating systems and routines that made the chaos manageable. Morning coffee with Ethan before Lily woke up, those quiet 20 minutes where they planned the day and remembered they were partners before they were parents. Breakfast together, always, even if it meant Adrienne arrived at the office later than she had in a decade. Dinner at 6, homework at 7, bedtime stories at 8:30. Her assistant noticed the change immediately. "You're different now," she said one afternoon when Adrienne left at 5:45. "You smile at random moments. You take calls from someone named Lily, who clearly isn't a client. You're almost happy." "Almost?" Adrienne raised an eyebrow. "Well, you're still terrifying in board meetings, but now you're terrifying in a way that feels purposeful instead of punitive. Like you have something to lose, so you fight harder but smarter." The observation stayed with Adrienne as she drove home through rush hour traffic, singing badly to the radio because Lily had taught her the words to some pop song about courage. She did have something to lose now. Everything, actually. And the fear of losing it didn't paralyze her anymore. It sharpened her, made her more intentional about every choice. But intention couldn't protect against everything. The crisis came in mid-June, on a Tuesday that started like any other. Adrienne was in a meeting with her medical division when her phone buzzed with a call from Lily's school. She excused herself immediately, heart already racing. "Ms. Vale, this is Principal Morrison. We need you to come pick up Lily. She's in the nurse's office." "What happened? Is she hurt?" "She collapsed during recess. She's conscious now, but she's running a fever and complaining of pain in her abdomen. We've called Mr. Cole as well, but you were listed as an emergency contact. I'm on my way." She grabbed her keys and ran, not bothering to explain to her assistant or the startled executive she left behind. 20 minutes later, she burst into the nurse's office to find Lily curled on a cot, face pale, Ethan kneeling beside her. "Butterfly, I'm here." Adrienne took Lily's hand, alarmed by how hot it felt. "What hurts?" "My tummy and my head, and I'm so tired, Audrey." The fear in Lily's eyes was visceral, the fear of a child who'd been sick before, who knew what serious illness felt like, who'd learned that bodies could betray you when you least expected it. Ethan met Adrienne's gaze over their daughter's head. The same terror she felt was reflected in his expression. "We're taking her to St. Catherine's," he said, voice steady despite the panic she could see underneath. "Dr. Patel is meeting us there." The emergency room was a blur of fluorescent lights and urgent voices. Dr. Patel appeared almost immediately, her calm presence a lifeline as she ordered tests and examinations. Adrienne held Lily's hand through blood draws and imaging scans, murmuring reassurances she didn't entirely believe, while Ethan paced the waiting room with the kind of helpless agitation of a parent who couldn't fix what was broken. 3 hours later, Dr. Patel returned with results. "It's appendicitis," she said, and the relief that washed through Adrienne was so intense she nearly collapsed. Not cancer, not a relapse, just a very inflamed appendix that needs to come out immediately. "Surgery?" Lily's voice was small and scared. "Quick surgery. Laparoscopic, minimally invasive. You'll be home in 2 days?" Dr. Patel squeezed Lily's shoulder gently. "This is fixable, sweetheart. I promise." But even fixable things were terrifying when they involved your child in operating rooms and general anesthesia. They prepped Lily for surgery in a pediatric bay decorated with cheerful murals that felt grotesquely inappropriate given the circumstances. A nurse with kind eyes explained the procedure while Lily clutched the stuffed butterfly Adrienne had given her months ago. "I'm scared," Lily whispered as they wheeled her toward the operating room. "What if something goes wrong? What if I don't wake up like Mommy didn't wake up?" The comparison to Sarah's sudden death hit Ethan like a physical blow. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Adrienne knelt beside the gurney, taking Lily's face in her hands. "Look at me, Butterfly. You're going to be fine. Dr. Patel is the best surgeon in this hospital. She's going to fix your appendix, and you're going to wake up sore and cranky and probably demanding ice cream. And your dad and I will be right here waiting. Promise? I promise. On every butterfly in our garden, on every star in the sky, on everything that matters. I promise you're going to be okay." Lily nodded, tears streaming down her face, and then they were taking her away, and Adrienne and Ethan were left standing in an empty corridor, holding each other because standing alone felt impossible. "She's going to be fine," Adrienne said, repeating it like a mantra. "This is routine. People have appendectomies every day." "Sarah was supposed to be fine too." Ethan's voice broke. "The accident wasn't supposed to kill her. She was supposed to wake up, and she didn't, so how can I trust that Lily will? Because Lily isn't Sarah. Because this isn't a car accident. Because we're in a hospital with excellent doctors and every possible resource." Adrienne pulled back to look at him directly. "And because we have to believe. We have to trust that the universe isn't that cruel, that lightning doesn't strike the same family twice." "You don't know that." "No, I don't. But I know that falling apart won't help Lily. So we're going to sit in that waiting room and we're going to be strong because that's what parents do. Even when we're terrified. Even when every instinct is screaming that the world is ending." They sat. For 90 minutes, that felt like 90 years. They sat in a waiting room with other terrified families. drinking terrible coffee and holding hands and existing in that suspended space where the future was uncertain and the present was unbearable. When Dr. Patel finally emerged, still in her surgical scrubs, they both stood so quickly they nearly knocked over chairs. "She's fine," Dr. Patel said immediately, seeing their panic. "Surgery went perfectly. The appendix was very inflamed, but we got it out before it ruptured. She's in recovery now, groggy but stable." Ethan actually sobbed with relief, and Adrienne held him while her own tears soaked into his shirt. "Can we see her?" Adrienne managed. "Give the anesthesia a few more minutes to wear off, but yes, soon." Lily looked impossibly small in the recovery bed, hooked to monitors and IV lines. But her eyes were open and she managed a weak smile when she saw them. "You stayed," she mumbled, words slurred from medication. "Of course we stayed." Ethan kissed her forehead carefully, mindful of the monitors. "We'll always stay." "Audrey too?" "Audrey too," Adrienne confirmed, taking Lily's hand. "I'm not going anywhere, Butterfly." "Good, 'cause I want you to be my real mom, not just my bonus person." Lily's eyes drifted closed again, then opened with effort. "Daddy, you should marry Adri. Then she can't leave even if she wants to." Ethan laughed wetly. "That's not how marriage works, sweetheart." "Should be. If you love someone, you should make it official so they stay forever." Her words were getting more slurred. "I'm sleepy, but I'm happy you're both here. My two favorite people in the whole world." She drifted off again, leaving Adrienne and Ethan staring at each other across her bed. "Out of the mouths of babes," Ethan said softly. "She's on a lot of pain medication. Doesn't mean she's wrong." Adrienne looked down at Lily's sleeping face, at this child who'd somehow become hers in every way that mattered. "We should talk about this when our daughter isn't recovering from surgery and demanding we get married." "Our daughter?" Ethan's eyes were bright with emotion. "Yes, ours. I know she's biologically yours and Sarah's, but she's mine too now. In my heart, in the ways that count, if that's okay with you." "It's more than okay." He reached across Lily's bed to take Adrienne's hand. "And for the record, she's right. I should marry you. Not because it makes you stay. I trust that you'll stay regardless. But because I want the world to know that you're my person, that we're a family, that this thing we've built together is permanent." "Ethan, I don't have a ring. This is possibly the worst proposal in history, delivered in a hospital room while our daughter sleeps off anesthesia. But I love you, Adrienne Vale. I love your strength and your vulnerability and the way you learned to make terrible pizza because it made Lily happy. I love that you're terrified of failing, but you show up anyway. I love that you read bedtime stories with the same intensity you bring to board meetings. And I want to spend the rest of my life loving you, if you'll let me." Adrienne felt tears streaming down her face. "I'm a disaster at domestic things. I can barely cook. I work too much. I'll probably screw up parenting in ways we haven't even imagined yet. I know, and I love you anyway, so what do you say? Will you marry me?" She looked at Lily, sleeping peacefully between them, at Ethan, whose eyes held nothing but hope and certainty, at the life they'd built from broken pieces and second chances. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." He kissed her across their daughter's bed, gentle and reverent, sealing a promise that had started with a janitor refusing to bow and a CEO learning to be human again. Lily came home 2 days later with strict orders to rest and a list of foods she could eat that she immediately declared boring. She set up camp on the living room couch, surrounded by art supplies and books, holding court like a small monarch while her subjects catered to her every whim. "I want ice cream," she announced on day 3 of her recovery. "Dr. Patel said light foods," Ethan reminded her. "Ice cream is light. It's frozen milk. Milk is light." "That's not how this works." "Audrey, tell Daddy ice cream is medicinal." Adrienne looked up from her laptop, where she was trying to work remotely while monitoring their patient. "I'm not getting in the middle of this. Please, I almost died." "You had appendicitis, common childhood ailment. No one almost died." Lily's lower lip trembled with practiced devastation. "But I was scared. And ice cream makes scared people feel better. That's basically medicine." Adrienne and Ethan exchanged glances. They were both completely aware they were being manipulated. They both caved anyway. Small bowl, Ethan conceded, and if Dr. Patel asks, you stole it when we weren't looking. Deal. Rebecca visited that afternoon, bringing flowers and a stuffed animal and thinly veiled assessment of how Adrienne was handling the crisis. She watched as Adrienne helped Lily to the bathroom, slowly, carefully, mindful of healing incisions, and as Ethan and Adrienne worked in tandem to make lunch, moving around each other with the practiced ease of people who'd learned each other's rhythms. You're good at this, Rebecca said quietly when Lily was napping and Ethan had gone to pick up prescriptions. The parent thing. It's not natural for everyone, but you make it look easy. It's not easy. I'm terrified most of the time that I'm doing it wrong. Welcome to parenting. The terror never goes away. You just get better at functioning through it. Rebecca studied her seriously. Sarah would have liked you, I think. You're nothing alike. She was chaos and spontaneity, your structure and planning, but she would have appreciated that you love Lily fiercely, that you show up, that you're not trying to be her, just trying to be yourself. That means more than you know. Ethan told me he proposed. In the hospital, which is very on-brand for you two, dramatic and inconvenient and somehow perfect. Adrienne touched the butterfly pendant at her throat. We haven't told Lily yet. Wanted to wait until she was feeling better. She's going to lose her mind with excitement. Fair warning, she'll want to plan the entire wedding in excruciating detail. The child has opinions about everything. I've noticed, Rebecca stood, gathering her purse. Take care of them. They deserve someone who sees how special they are. And for what it's worth, I think you deserve them too. Happiness, family, all of it. After she left, Adrienne sat in the quiet house, listening to Lily's soft breathing from the couch and the distant sound of traffic outside. She thought about the woman she'd been 8 months ago, cold, isolated, measuring success in stock prices and profit margins. That woman wouldn't recognize her now, wouldn't understand how she'd become someone who found meaning in ice cream negotiations and hospital vigils and butterfly gardens. But that woman had also been deeply unhappy, building empires to fill voids that only love could actually heal. Ethan returned with medications and takeout dinner. They ate together on the floor beside Lily's couch, paper containers spread between them, talking quietly about nothing important and everything essential. When should we tell her? Ethan asked. About the engagement? Soon. Maybe this weekend when she's feeling stronger. I was thinking we could take her to the botanical gardens. She's been asking to go. We could tell her there, surrounded by butterflies and flowers. Make it special. You're a romantic. I never would have guessed. I contain multitudes. You contain spreadsheets and carefully organized chaos and a surprising talent for bedtime story voices. The voices are Lily's favorite part. They're my favorite part too. He kissed her softly. Have I mentioned lately that I love you? Not in the last hour. I was starting to worry. I love you, completely, chaotically, forever. Saturday arrived with perfect June weather. Lily was healing well, cleared by Dr. Patel for light activity, which apparently included walking through botanical gardens while providing detailed commentary on every plant they passed. This is lavender, she announced to anyone within earshot. We have it in our garden at home. Audrey planted it, and I watered it, and now bees visit us every day. The bees are my friends. An elderly couple smiled at her enthusiasm. A young mother with a toddler complimented her butterfly t-shirt. Lily absorbed the attention like sunshine, glowing with the resilience of children who'd survived challenges and emerged determined to love the world harder. They found a bench in the butterfly pavilion, surrounded by dozens of species in colors Adrienne hadn't known existed. Orange and black monarchs, brilliant blue morphos, delicate white cabbage butterflies that landed on Lily's outstretched hand. Butterfly, we have something to tell you, Ethan said, nervous despite having rehearsed this conversation multiple times. Lily's eyes went wide. Are we getting a dog? What? No, why would you think? Because you have that voice, the one you use for big announcements. And I've been asking for a dog forever, so I thought maybe. We're not getting a dog, Adrienne interjected gently, but we do have big news. Your dad asked me to marry him, and I said yes. The silence lasted 3 full seconds. Then Lily screamed, You're getting married! You're actually getting married! This is the best day of my entire life. Wait, does this mean Audrey will be my real mom? Like officially? With paperwork and everything? Eventually, yes, Adrian said. If you want that, I'd like to adopt you legally. Make it official that you're my daughter, but only if you're comfortable with it. Are you kidding? Yes! 1,000 times yes! Lily threw herself at Adrian with enough force to nearly knock her off the bench. This is perfect. This is everything I wanted. When's the wedding? Can I be the flower girl? Can we have butterflies? Real ones, not just decorations? Slow down, butterfly. We haven't planned anything yet. Then we need to start planning immediately. This is important. We need lists and schedules and... She stopped, suddenly serious. Wait, does this mean you'll change your name? Will you be Adrian Cole, or will Daddy be Ethan Vale, or will you do that hyphen thing that makes everything complicated? Adrian and Ethan exchanged glances. They hadn't discussed this. What would you like? Adrian asked carefully. Lily considered with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice. I think we should all be Coles, because that's what we are, a family. And families should have the same name so everyone knows we belong together. Something tight and painful and beautiful bloomed in Adrian's chest. For 10 years she'd been Adrienne Vale, the name she'd built an empire under, the identity she'd crafted from grief and ambition. Letting it go felt like shedding the last piece of armor, stepping fully into vulnerability. Then Adrian Cole it is, she said. Lily's grin could have powered the sun. This is going to be amazing. We need to tell Aunt Rebecca, and Dr. Patel, and everyone at school. And we need to have the wedding in our garden because that's where the magic is, remember? That's where everything started. They spent the rest of the afternoon planning an imaginary wedding with the detailed enthusiasm only a 7-year-old could muster. By the time they left, they'd decided on colors, purple and gold, a menu that consisted primarily of pizza and ice cream, and a guest list that included Lily's entire second-grade class, various stuffed animals, and all the butterflies in the world. We can modify the plans later, Ethan whispered to Adrian as Lily skipped ahead, once reality sets in. Are you kidding? We're having exactly the wedding Lily described. Pizza, butterflies, second graders, and all. You're serious? Completely. I've spent 10 years doing everything the conventional way. Time to try something different. That night, after Lily finally fell asleep from excitement and planning, Adrian and Ethan sat in their bedroom now, fully shared, Adrian's clothes hanging beside his, her books mingling with his on the shelves. Are you sure about the name change? Ethan asked. Vale is your professional identity. Changing it could complicate things. I'll keep Vale professionally if it makes sense. But personally, privately, I want to be Adrian Cole. I want to share a name with my family. I want people to know I belong to you and Lily as much as you belong to me. When did you become such a romantic? When a janitor taught me that love isn't weakness, it's the bravest thing we can do. They married in September when the garden reached its peak glory. True to Lily's vision, they held the ceremony in their backyard, surrounded by roses and wildflowers and friends who'd watched their unlikely love story unfold. Rebecca stood as Adrian's maid of honor, having transformed from protective skeptic to fierce advocate. Marcus Webb was Ethan's best man, still amused that his facilities coordinator had captured the heart of the CEO he'd once thought soulless. Dr. Patel attended with tears in her eyes, bearing witness to the family she'd helped save in more ways than medical. And the Vale Tech board came too. All 12 directors, even the one who'd voted against Adrian's relationship, because they'd learned that a CEO with personal investment made better decisions than one running on ambition alone. Lily was the world's most enthusiastic flower girl, scattering petals with such vigor that the guests laughed and the photographer captured pure joy in every frame. The ceremony was simple, no religious overtones, just promises made between two people who'd survived loss and chosen to risk love anyway. Adrienne wore a simple white dress that Lily had helped pick out. Ethan wore a suit that actually fit, purchased specifically for this occasion, and when they exchanged vows they'd written themselves, there wasn't a dry eye in the garden. I promised to show up, Adrienne said, voice steady despite her tears. To be present for the mundane and the magnificent. To read bedtime stories and attend school plays and navigate homework crises with patience. To honor Sarah's memory by loving the family she created. To choose connection over control, vulnerability over armor, grace over perfection. I promise to see you, Ethan replied. Not as a CEO or a success story, but as Adrienne. The woman who makes terrible pizza and organizes everything in 17 contradictory systems. The woman who learned to love again even when it terrified her. The woman who saved my daughter's life and then saved mine by teaching me that second chances are real if we're brave enough to reach for them. They kissed as husband and wife, while butterflies, real ones, released by Lily at the perfect moment, swirled around them in a cloud of orange and black and gold. The reception was exactly as chaotic as planned. Pizza from the local place that made Lily's favorite. A cake decorated with hand-painted butterflies. Dancing on the grass while children ran wild and adults remembered what joy felt like. Toast that made everyone laugh and cry in equal measure. And late in the evening, when the sun set in shades of amber and rose, Adrienne found herself standing in the garden with Lily, watching fireflies emerge for their nightly dance. "Are you happy, Adri?" Lily asked, slipping her small hand into Adrienne's. "Happier than I knew was possible." "Good, because you deserve to be happy. Daddy told me about the baby you lost and how sad you were for a long time. But now you have me, and that's kind of like getting a different baby, except I'm bigger and can already read and use the bathroom by myself." Adrienne laughed through her tears. "You're exactly the daughter I needed, even if I didn't know I needed one." "And Daddy's the husband you needed?" "Definitely. And our garden is the magic place where everything good happens?" "Without question." Lily squeezed her hand. "Then we have everything, and that's the best kind of happy ending." Adrienne pulled her daughter close, breathing in the scent of children's shampoo and garden flowers and possibility. "It's not an ending, butterfly. It's a beginning." And it was. The beginning of morning coffee and homework battles and family dinners. The beginning of school concerts and soccer games and lazy Sunday mornings. The beginning of arguments about chores and negotiations about bedtime, and the beautiful mundane chaos of life lived fully. 2 years later, Adrienne stood in the same garden holding a newborn daughter with Ethan's eyes and her determination. Lily hovered nearby, taking her role as big sister with the seriousness it deserved. "Can I hold her?" Lily asked for the 100th time. "Sit down first, support her head, gentle." Lily settled on the grass, cradling her baby sister with practiced care. "Hi, Emma. I'm your big sister. I'm going to teach you everything. How to plant gardens and release butterflies and stand up to mean people even when you're scared. How to be brave like Audrey and kind like Daddy and magic like Mom. Sarah, who's in heaven watching us." Ethan wrapped his arm around Adrienne's waist, pulling her close. "We did good. We did better than good. We built something real. From nothing. From broken pieces," she corrected. "From grief and loss and the courage to try again." They stood together in the garden they'd planted from bare earth, surrounded by the family they'd built from shattered hearts, and watched their daughters, both of them, create the next chapter of their unlikely story. Vailtech continued to thrive under Adrienne's leadership, but she left at 6 every evening now, delegating and trusting and understanding that success without connection was just elaborate loneliness. She promoted employees based on merit and potential rather than ruthless competition. She implemented policies that valued work-life balance. She built a company culture where people could be human and still be excellent. And on her office wall, beside the awards and achievements, hung a child's watercolor of a woman in a garden, surrounded by butterflies bringing back the kindness she'd given to the world. Years passed. Lily graduated high school with honors and Sarah's artistic talent. Emma followed in Adrienne's footsteps toward business school, but with Ethan's compassion. The garden grew and changed and bloomed with the seasons. The butterflies returned every spring, and Adrienne, who'd once measured success in quarterly earnings and stock prices, learned to measure it in different currency. In Lily's laughter and Emma's achievements, and Ethan's steady presence beside her. In family dinners and butterfly releases and the quiet joy of being known and loved completely. She'd lost a baby once, had spent a decade building armor to protect the broken pieces. But in learning to be vulnerable again, in choosing connection over control, in allowing a janitor and his daughter to see past her defenses, she'd found something more valuable than any empire. She'd found home. And on summer evenings, when fireflies danced in the garden and her family gathered on the porch, Adrienne would touch the butterfly pendant at her throat and remember the woman she used to be, cold and isolated and terrified of feeling. And she'd be grateful for the crisis that shattered her armor, grateful for the man who refused to bow, grateful for the child who believed in magic. Because sometimes the greatest success wasn't building something from nothing. Sometimes it was allowing yourself to be broken down completely and rebuilt into something better, something softer, something that could hold joy without crushing it. Like butterflies emerging from chrysalises, transformed and ready to fly. Like families built from courage and second chances. Like love that survived loss and chose to bloom again. More beautiful for having known darkness. The garden had taught them that. Year after year, season after season, it died back to nothing and returned stronger. And so had they, returning from grief, from isolation, from the belief that broken things stayed broken, proving that with patience and care and the willingness to begin again, anything could grow. Even, especially, hearts that had learned to hope after forgetting how. And that was the truest magic of all.